Welcome to this very special episode of TFL Today. You're on TFL Now, our live channel, so you're watching this live. And next to me is my friend and an extraordinary car tuner, Harvey. You need no introduction, but why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Harvey Epstein. I have a shop in Longmont, Colorado called the Boost Creep, which is a strange technical term that I thought was hilarious at the time. It's a little bit of a strange name, but yeah, what I've been doing since '05 is calibrating engines for people, mainly in the Subaru market, but my love is just across all engines, mainly horizontally opposed though, I'll say.
So today we are going to be talking nothing but tuning. And if you guys are into horsepower and if you're into cranking out the most horsepower possible from your car, then this is the show to watch. And we're going to do this in 3 segments. First, we're going to start and do kind of tuning 101.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about kind of the top 3 to-dos, top 3 not to-dos, and then we're going to go into the various stages of tuning, what cars to tune, what happens to your warranty, all these questions that you probably might have if you're considering tuning a car. So let's start right away with what is tuning. Harvey, what is tuning? I mean, obviously tuning at its base is just putting more power to the wheels.
Yeah, well that's one definition of it. I mean, that's an aspect of it, but tuning is really calibration. So for me, I'll separate it into 2 questions. One is, what are we trying to achieve with tuning? You have to look at that. So some people, they really need, say, their car to be emissions friendly and to drive well on the street and to stay legal. Other people need their car to be a race car and need to make a lot of horsepower. Other people want longevity. They have an old car that they probably want to last a little bit longer. So they approach me with all different needs. So calibration really is changing the parameters of the car, and the main things that we're changing is fueling, the air-fuel ratio, the mixture that we're putting in the cylinder, and then ignition timing. Everything else just falls from that. So if I have some sort of supercharged or turbocharged car, I may change the timing based on the boost levels, or I may change the fueling based on the boost levels. But ultimately, tuning is calibrating the car for a goal, and sometimes it's a balance of things. Even one that I didn't mention is how much mileage do you get out of a car. So we don't want a car that just burns up all the gas, and we don't care about that. We want something that goes down the road in general, and that's really what tuning is. It's calibrating the car for a set of conditions that the customer is looking for.
Now let's do some shout outs before we keep going. So first of all, your website is theboostcreepltd.com.
Yes, correct.
And guys, Harvey teaches tuning.
Yeah.
And you're going to be teaching, well, you got EFIU there. You're going to be teaching a class on tuning coming up in April. When is that and where is it?
That's April 1st and 2nd at my shop in
next
Longmont.
Weekend, yeah.
Yeah, next weekend. So I'll be there. It's a $5.95 class. It's a day and a half, and then we have a live demo at the end on the dynamometer, and we show you all the concepts because some of them are so unbelievable and they go against the grain of what people have been told their whole lives. And so we want you to see it, and you guys are also welcome to come and show.
Yeah, we might. We're talking about actually doing like a little bit of a live show from there and giving you a sneak peek at what it's like to actually go to a tuning class. And is this class for people who want to be tuners, or is this class for people who have cars who want them tuned?
This is class for everybody.
Yeah.
I got my start in this class, and I went to watch so I could know what my tuner was doing, and the guy looked at me, his name's Ben Strader, great guy. He said, "You should be doing this for a living." And we owned a bar in Boulder at the time, and I quit that day and started tuning, and I've never looked back. This is my passion, and I love it. But if you guys want to know more information, just go to EFI101.com and sign up there at the Boost Creep. So, yeah.
And you're wearing a hat that says Cobb. Now, there are different tuners, obviously. Cobb is one of them. Tell me the difference between like a Cobb tune versus, every car manufacturer seems to have somebody that they work with specifically, right? So Cobb
Certainly.
is a big Subaru tuner, for instance.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
that's their main
Right,
their
that's
focus.
the main. So why is a Cobb tune better than one of the competitors?
I think it's better than the competitors because they give you the ability to monitor your tune after it's done. A lot of other ones are based on trust and a history of not having problems with your car. That's not good enough for the modern sort of tech nerd, someone that wants to see what the knock sensor is doing and which cylinder is unhappy. The Cobb programs, not only can we make you custom maps that fit in your car, but a number of them, an economy map, an anti-theft map, high power, low power, just things that you can not only put in, but once you put it in, you can sit there and say, hey, this isn't working right now, my fuel trims are wrong, or my car is detonating and going to blow the engine up. So we give you the ability to watch it afterwards, and hopefully everybody that makes custom maps through the Cobb system is doing such a safe job that when you look at it, you say, oh, my car's so happy, I'm just gonna keep going down the road, or I'm at the racetrack and I'm gonna have a good day.
Yeah, before we get to the top three to-dos and not-to-dos, yes, Andre, is there a question?
Well, it's almost 10 o'clock,
Okay.
so we're kind of building up the audience,
Yeah,
right?
we're going up the audience.
And we're a few people saying hello.
Yep.
So we have Mark,
Hey, Mark.
Mad Dog,
Hey, Mad Dog.
Michelle from Dallas,
Hey, Michelle from Dallas.
and Overland.
Oh, nice. Well, welcome,
So,
welcome to
so
the show.
a few people are joining, and it's 10 o'clock. So we usually start a little bit early,
Yep.
and then we kind of get into the meat of things.
Right. So let's get into the meat of things. But
Sure.
let's talk about why we have these two cars behind us. Because we have a Porsche. That's your vehicle. That's a Porsche 997.
996.
996. Sorry, 996 turbo. What year?
This is a 2002.
And that's our Hellcat. And the reason we have these, of course, is because that one is turbocharged and that one is supercharged. So they're very tunable. So it's easier, I suspect, to tune a vehicle that has either a supercharger or a turbocharger, but it doesn't have to have, right? You can tune a car without any kind of forced induction.
Oh yeah, no forced induction. You can tune cars that have no computer. You can calibrate anything that you need to, as long as you have a way to measure air-fuel ratio, as long as you have a way to look at what ignition timing is at and what it does. Whether you're spinning a distributor or typing in or hitting the plus key a bunch of times, it's the same thing at the end of the day. The nice thing about computers is it's very precise. So we know that there's a little bit of slop, say, in a distributor in an old 350 Chevy. So the ignition timing may wander a little bit. The arc from the little rotor that sends the electricity, sometimes it jumps to the wrong tower. So it's not very precise. It's not a precise thing the way that computers are when we have a crank sensor that can tell you the exact position of the crankshaft and then tell the spark plug, hey, right now you're an individual coil pack, I want you to spark. This is all kind of over some people's heads, but it's very precise what we do with computers.
Yeah, and yours is tuned.
Yes.
Yeah, this one isn't tuned. In the second half of the show, we're actually going to go and kind of walk around the car. We're going to show you, you got your computer with you, what a tune actually looks like and what it can do for your car. But before we get to the top three, let's talk about kind of the myths and misconceptions, right? Because you can go online right now and you can buy a little black box,
Yeah.
right, for like, I don't know, $50 to $500.
Sure.
That you plug into the OBD port.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, your vehicle, your truck, your high-performance car will put out more horsepower. What is that?
That's usually where they're remapping it.
Yeah.
It's called remapping. So the computer has a series of lookup tables and it addresses it based on inputs. So, and I'll further separate sort of the topic into saying, hey, when we calibrate, we may have to calibrate the sensor so that it knows what's really happening. If someone changes an intake or something, the car doesn't know what's happening anymore. So before we can actually tell the car what to do, we have to give the car the ability to see the world accurately, whether it's airflow or knock sensing, things like that. So initially, when a customer changes things about the car, we want to calibrate it so that it can see the world, and then we can start pushing parameters.
So what I'm hearing is you use those little boxes at your own risk.
Yeah, they can be very dangerous.
They could be very dangerous. You could do some significant damage to your car that's going to be very expensive to repair. And that's probably a good starting point. Let's talk about the top three to-dos and not to-dos. So let's start with the top three to-dos.
Okay, my top three to-dos,
Yeah.
let's see here.
Well, tuning your car, yeah.
Yeah, I would say first you want to research the car you're going to buy. You don't want to buy a car just because your friend has a 4-cylinder turbo. You don't want to run out and say, I want to buy a 4-cylinder and I'll add the turbo later. Usually those cars don't have a strong transmission, don't have a cooling system. The engine block and rods and bearings and pistons aren't beefed up enough to take further power.
So it's not like Fast and Furious. You just throw some nitrous on it, stick a box on it, and then the cylinders start moving faster and the exhaust gets louder. It doesn't work that way.
It does work that way often, but those are the people that it's like Sisyphus. They're pushing the rock up the hill and it rolls back, and then they push it up again and again until they finally get somewhere. So
Okay.
you can do that, but by the time you're done, you probably could have bought a really, really nice car that would have been faster in the beginning anyway. So do the research, maybe save up and invest in something that, while maybe it isn't the fastest model, it has robust hardware that can take that abuse that when you do push it up, you're going to be able to.
And usually cars like that are cars that you probably know, like Subaru STIs are very tunable.
Sure.
The WRX is very tunable.
Yeah.
The Nissan GTR is very tunable. We can go down the line. You can kind of think of the high performance, usually supercharged or turbocharged cars. And if they're a high performance car to begin with, they probably got everything downstream to handle that extra power, right? Because you can crank more power, but that doesn't mean that the differential can take more power
No.
or the drive shaft can take more power. I was I was with the Hellcat at Bandamere, and there was a guy who has had a Subaru STI who was putting out 1,000 horsepower. At least that's what he said, right? And
Sure.
we'll get to the dyno part later. We'll talk about that, right?
Uh-huh.
And he lined up, and then revved the engine, and then there was this loud like, and all kinds of fluid fell out of the thing, and I think he just detonated his transmission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's
Yeah.
common. That's a common weak point. I'll say that's one of the things you can say to yourself is, what is my final goal? That was all related to the first thing, that research part.
Yeah, so number one, you said research. Number
Yeah.
two, what do you got there, number two? on
Yeah,
our list?
number two, I'll say, you wanna sort of, part of the research is seeing that there's a big aftermarket. You wanna interview different tuners, you wanna see what's available for the car once you've chosen it. If there's only if there's no companies making parts for the car, it can be very, very expensive to sort of try to build it, or to have options to build it. It's nice when you say to yourself, hey, I can use a Garrett turbocharger that bolts right onto my car. They make a kit from Garrett for certain cars, or I can use a Borg Warner, or I can use another major company. When you don't have those choices, you're stuck with hey, there's a guy around the corner that says he can build me a turbocharger. That's not the thing that you want in general. They spin too fast. They spin at about 200,000 RPMs, upwards of those types of wheel speeds. So you need precision. So doing the research as far as what's available, not just for tuning, but for computers that can control the engine, and for upgraded clutches, things like that. I get calls all the time from people.
Or you could just take your car to Harvey.
Yeah, or just come to me and talk to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this car. Can I tune it? Is there parts for it?
So number
Yeah.
three, we have a long-term plan, and I guess that goes to the fact that there are different stages of tuning, which we'll talk about, right?
Certainly.
But there's at the beginning there's a mystery black box, right? Then a better system might be like Cobb you're working with, right? Where there's presets tuned
Yes.
that are specifically designed for certain cars, and then you can take it to the next level, which is actually bring it to you, where you actually specifically tune whatever is on that car to that car.
Yeah.
And then
certainly.
of course you start adding hardware.
There can get to be a tuning level that's a fourth level, I'll say. This is mainly using flash modules to reprogram the car. At another level, when we get to race cars, there are things like computers from a company, say, called Motec or Haltech, and these are replacement computers. They're for race cars though, but they have things like traction control, yaw control, GPS. We get very advanced at that point.
We ran that car, and you should check out this video. It's we had Paul, our race car driver, run it at the Colorado Mile, which is to see how fast it'll go over a mile. And we did kind of a feature on a GTR.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
from Colorado Springs, where they had tuned it to 2,500 horsepower, which is substantially more than that's 3 times almost 4 times what the car originally puts out. And
5.
it's crazy, yeah. But that's the level of tuning that cost. I think he said that car was probably, the tune alone was $250,000. So now you're tuning to a car that's actually less expensive than the tuning that's gone into it.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, that's Rob's car. I sent him to Tony at T1 Race Development. That car was getting way beyond anything I even really deal with on a daily basis. A 2,500 horse GTR, you don't want to have even a guy like me build it, because I mainly just focus on street cars and safety and things like that. If you have that kind of budget, which Rob does, you just go crazy and take it to the right guy the first time.
All right, so we've had the top 3 things to do. What are the top 3 kind of big mistakes that people make when they go to tune their car?
I'll say they focus on a number. They don't focus on trying to make the car a very safe, happy calibration and do the best with what they can. We can always go back later, and if the parts aren't what you wanted as far as output, we can put bigger
Yeah,
parts
but you
in.
can't brag with balance.
Yeah.
But you can only brag with numbers, right?
Yeah, look, my car never knocks.
Yeah. So like that car has 707 horsepower. How much did you tune yours to?
457.
And we had Paul, our professional race car driver, take both cars around the track. And that's our Hot or Not series. And which car do you think is faster? Of course it's that car. So, you've got 707 horsepower, but it's not usable. Whereas yours, while it has less power, much more usable. And I'm not talking about like a second slower. I mean, this car is significantly slower on the track than that car. So, so don't focus just on numbers, even though that's the kind of stuff you can put on Facebook, right?
Sure, yeah.
And pass along. Number 1, don't focus on numbers, focus on kind of performance. Number 2.
Number 2, I'll say a big mistake is to come unprepared, not to do not just the research, but the research into how to prepare a car for being pushed hard. I get guys all the time that don't wanna let me look at the car. They say, hey, my mechanic is the best. You don't have to do anything, just pull it on. Then you pull out the dipstick and it's completely dry. I've had to put 4 quarts of oil in a 5-quart engine, and then at that point, I don't want to push the car because I imagine it's full of metal. Instead of oil, where the oil goes.
Yeah, that's so good, because then you'll put on the dyno, it'll blow up, and then you're the guy who blew it up.
Yeah, prepare it with good tires, make sure your lug nuts are tight, things, just safety things. That's the second biggest mistake, is people don't, they're so concerned with their shiny new turbocharger and fuel injectors that they don't do the maintenance. Send your oil off for analysis. Talk to your tuner and say, hey, what are the pitfalls of this setup? Is it possible that I may not make the power I want? The biggest one I see, and I'll actually give this one number 3 because it's the biggest topic.
Okay.
These days we use a lot of ethanol. I think it's a very green fuel, it's very environmentally friendly, but the best part is it makes so much more power than any other gasoline I've ever come across, including C16, which is a leaded 116 octane race fuel, race-only fuel. So when people come in for tuning, whether they're going for big power or whether they're going for these alternative fuels, we use a lot more fuel to make a lot more power. Usually they don't want to invest in the proper fuel supply system, and when numbers get big, fuel supplies generally fall down. A fuel system isn't just a fuel pump dropped into the tank. Sometimes it can involve quite a bit of plumbing, quite a bit of electrical.
Yeah.
The electrical supply has to be perfect, or else it'll kill the pump immediately. So I'll just say that's the biggest mistake I see on the dyno. Fuel systems, beef them up, folks.
Yeah, I remember when I went to the launch of the Hellcat, and they were talking about the fuel lines. They're like the size of the pipe coming out of your toilet, right? I mean, they're big fuel lines, and of course, everything upstream and downstream is also beefed up, because when that thing is at full throttle, it's sucking a lot of fuel and a lot of air, and so you need to have both the air and obviously the fuel to get it to the engine so it can combust and so you can put out that much power. By the way, guys, if you're just joining us, I've got my buddy Harvey here from the Boost Creep. Harvey, what's your website if people want to check it out?
TheBoostCreep.com or TheBoostCreepLTD.com.
And Harvey's been tuning cars since 2005. Andre, do we have any questions we want to answer right now? A couple before we get to the show and tell part of it?
Yeah, and keep your questions coming. We'll answer more questions at the end.
Yeah, but I want
We have 2 questions. The original Porsche Boxster. Have you had any experience with that car? Is that a tunable car?
It is a tunable car. Again, it's a great engine. There is a fear of the IMS bearing, of course. We know the M96, I think it's called, engine. You guys have dealt with this on your own Boxsters and Porsches. The non-turbo early 99 and up cars, you want to replace that
IMS bearing. Yeah, that's always an issue. Ours hasn't been replaced, but it's got 100,000 miles on it. So at this point, I figure if it hasn't gone, it's not going to go. Another question, Andre?
Well, the question about the Hellcat. First of all,
Yeah.
is it a daily driver?
No.
It's our project. It's our long-term project,
Yeah.
Hellcat. But does it make sense to tune a Hellcat? What are your feelings
yeah.
on?
Oh, God, yeah, of course. Yeah, the people are tuning the hell out of those. I mean, you're at 707. The Demon's coming out. It's rumored to be at 850. You're going to want to take that to at least 800
Yeah.
if you're there, if not more, right, Harvey?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I mean, that would probably, I'm probably getting, 1,000 horsepower of that would be doable.
That would be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, here's the thing. We were talking about like electronics versus non-electronics. When we talk about turbochargers and superchargers, any tuner like me can hit that plus key. Again, that's what we call ourselves as plus key guys.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants us to push more and more. So you can turn up the boost in a turbo car by just pushing a button a couple times. This car, you brought it up to altitude, but it's a pulley driven. The pulley size determines the boost level.
Yeah.
So the boost is going to constantly drop as you go up in altitude. This car itself could benefit from a smaller pulley, but there's no button. There's no electronic way to tune your boost.
So it's a mechanical tune.
It's a mechanical tune,
Yeah.
partially. You would, the boost level is always going to be
All right,
mechanical.
and here's my biggest question, Harvey, and I bet you guys have the same question. If you take a brand new car like that and stick a different pulley on it, I know the answer to this. Or if somebody brings a brand new GTR to your shop, what happens to the warranty?
It is pretty much void. Yeah, it's you got to pay to play in this world, and
Yeah, I'm sure if I put a different pulley on there and we detonate the engine and I bring it back, put the old one on there, the guys at Dodge are going to be looking at me, kind of like, what did you do to it?
Oh yeah, some of these pulleys require a press too to get off the shaft. I mean, there's a lot of force there, so
Yeah.
they'll see it. I mean, they'll see the wrench marks.
And that goes back to what you were saying about picking the right car. Maybe if you want to tune a car, maybe you might want to consider a car that's no longer in warranty, like your 996 obviously is way out of warranty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a, 20-year-old car now.
Yeah, and we know that it's a robust engine. There's one on Craigslist right now in Minneapolis for $18,000, and it's got 590,000 miles on it right now.
Wow,
Upgraded turbos and a tune.
wow.
A stock engine.
All right, let's keep going. So we got the warranty. Let's go to the next part, a dyno. How important is a dyno? You have a dyno at your shop, right?
Certainly.
And it's probably the tuner's best friend, right?
It is, yeah, and it's interesting because if you watch YouTube, you don't see how a tuner actually should be using a dyno. You just see the final result, which is what we all want to see. We want to see that chart showing this hard pull. But using a dyno really lets you get below that. It lets you see what happens at half throttle, and even holding half throttle. If you tried to hold half throttle out on the street for 5 minutes, the car would be accelerating. With a dyno, you can actually hold it half throttle, hold it halfway in boost, and hold it there forever as you calibrate that zone. So it's really almost like an operating table is what I've been taught this, to teach this. It takes away many variables, the wind, different angles of road. There's so many variables that go away, and it lets us repeat over and over, and not only repeat, but measure the results. We can't measure torque or power on the street very easily.
It's dangerous.
And it's dangerous. And then splitting your attention between the deer, the pedestrians, the possible police, the curb, and calibrating a car that could fail if you're not paying close enough attention. If you can get rid of everything but paying attention to the car, you have much less chance of failure.
Yeah, Andre, you want to get the phone and we'll kind of walk over to the Porsche.
Yeah.
We'll show them kind of how a tune works. And normally when I see you working, you're sitting in the car.
Yeah.
You've got all kinds of sensors going into the car, right? Reading things like air temperature, exhaust,
Air fuel ratio.
fuel ratio, yeah. And so let's kind of show them how that works. 'Cause a lot of the tuning is actually done on a computer, and you've got a computer here.
Sure.
Yeah,
Here, I'll start it up.
yeah, boot it up. So tell me what have you done to this car while you're booting it up?
So this car, it contains a upgraded fuel system, just a drop-in pump, and then all I did was put in fuel injectors, and then recently we've put in some additional parts, which were just an exhaust. The exhaust
Here, I'll
really
be holding.
made very little difference here. I'll just set it up.
Yeah, put it up here, yeah. We don't want to scratch it. Harvey just took the wrap off his car. You had it wrapped in white.
Yeah.
So this is the your tuning.
Yeah, this is the tuning module. So
Okay.
this is from Cobb Company,
Yeah.
and this is the access port. Right now, if I turn the key on, I can see 6 different gauges, and it'll let me display over 100 different parameters, whether it's knock sensors, air fuel ratio, ignition timing, things you don't see on the dashboard, but that can certainly be used not just by me as a calibrator, but by the end user to monitor their tune after it's done. So even though you have a good tune, it doesn't mean your fuel pump isn't going to fail, or you aren't going to develop a leak that's going to throw off the fuel trims and others.
And so what's that graph that you got displayed on the?
So up here is just a data log of this
Yeah,
car
yeah.
driving around, and right now I've just got the air fuel ratio, and it actually measures it on both sides, the ignition timing and the RPM. So you can see that this was actually generated during a wide open throttle pull. I can put up things like boost, and then I can make changes, come back and see if it happened safely or not, and see how happy the car is after those changes. So this is really, this isn't the software, but this is the data log program. I'll open up the software if you like as well.
Yeah, and so this is plugged into the car's OBD port, right?
It is plugged into the OBD
Yeah.
port, and we use some proprietary stuff to get in there and recalibrate it.
Now some of the manufacturers obviously don't like you messing with their cars, so it's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game, isn't it?
It is, and it's there's a lot of I'll say there's a lot of effort put into getting into these computers so that we can calibrate them.
Yeah, so you got to crack the computer, because if you can't crack the computer, you can't calibrate it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all. So
what are we showing there now? What do we got?
So this is the math correction.
Right.
We can do things. These are the fuel tables. We have them broken up.
Yeah.
Here's idle control, ignition timing. We have throttle tables. So here's the ignition timing, and you can see it's based on engine speed here. And then this over here is relative load. That's a complex subject as far as telling you.
This whole thing just looks very complex to me, Harvey. I got to tell you, that's a lot. That's
Yeah.
why it's that's why it's called the university, right?
Sure. Yeah.
AFI
Sure.
University. And let's show them the exhaust, because we're going to talk about different stages of tune. Obviously, there's the electronic tune, but you've gone way beyond that, right? You've put on different turbos on this car?
No, I haven't yet.
It's got
I
the
have
original
them.
turbos, but different exhaust. Look at
Yeah,
that
this
exhaust.
has a really nice exhaust. This is from Nate at Euroburro's fabrication. He's in Golden,
Beautiful, look at that.
and the welds are just amazing. I'm proud of that, and I'm really thankful that he's helping me with this car.
Maybe we can fire the car up at the very
Yeah,
end.
we'll fire the car up at the very end and you can hear it because it sounds
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal. And, obviously, a Boxster engine sounds much different than a V8 Heavy,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's got its own kind of unique and cool sound. Well, let's keep going.
Sure.
There was a question coming in. Harvey, what is your favorite car to tune? Is it the one behind you or?
Oh, it's actually a Subaru. I love tuning old Subarus. The 2002 WRX is probably my favorite because it's simple. The Subaru's not a strong engine like this. It's fairly weak, and I love sort of that that kind of scary, like, oh, let's make as much as we can safely feeling of it. This one, you can just start hitting the plus key, and if you go too far, you're like, oops, I went too far, ha ha ha. The same thing with the GTR, it actually corrects itself. If you're a terrible tuner on the GTR and you make it want to go lean, as long as your target table is there, it'll correct itself. So I find it funny that some of the more expensive and faster cars already have self-corrective things that even a bad tuner can't really hurt the
But
car.
not an old Subaru.
No,
You
no.
can blow
tune.
that one up pretty good,
You
huh?
can blow it right up, and it's fun for me to be in charge of it. I love that when a car leaves, it's sort of like it's not a physical thing, but it's like almost this like sculpture of mapping that I helped make, and it's almost like my ideas drive the car down the road for the rest of the time that it's tuned on my tune.
So let's talk about stages of tune, right? There's, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. What does that mean?
Typically, at least in the Subaru market
Yeah.
and all the markets I've been in, stage one it refers to a stock car that we're just recalibrating for optimal efficiency, whether the efficiency is mileage or power. Stage two is usually just simple bolt-ons. The simplest things are an intake and exhaust, and that's typically what stage two is. And then you go on, when people talk about stage three, it becomes very vague.
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just say,
Like that $250,000 GTR.
yeah, that's stage like 47.6, or stage 43 if you like.
Yeah, it seems like you could go very deep into, getting your car's performance. So let's talk about kind of the best cars to tune.
Oh wow, I'd say the best cars to tune are the ones with the most robust aftermarket.
Okay.
So LS Chevys are very good to tune, GTRs are very good, Porsches are becoming very good to tune, and of course Subarus and Evos, those are my favorite cars. And then I think the best car for a budget tune is a Honda Civic, almost any generation. Really great engineering, really strong engine for the money you spend on it, and it's something that a high school kid, or even before high school, can do. It's when I was a kid in the 80s, for me that was the 350 Chevy platform. It was, you could find them at junkyards everywhere. I think the LS from General Motors and the Honda engines, like the 1.6 liter, I'm not very knowledgeable about Hondas, but some of the earlier Hondas are very affordable at this point.
Well, we just had the Honda hatchback Sport in here driving it, and they didn't want us to take it out of the track because they didn't want us tearing up the tires, but that's got that new turbocharged engine. I could see that thing being prime for tuning, and they're coming out with the SI, and they're coming out with the Type R. And the Type R is rumored to be over 300 horsepower. I bet you when it comes out this summer, Harvey, it's going to go to a tuning shop like that. It'll be like from the dealership right to the tuner, because it seems like that's a great potential car, especially since it has a turbocharger. How about like a GTI?
The GTI coming along, doing great. At least with us at Cobb.
Yeah.
I found in the past a lot of the problem with tuning a lot of the German makes is that they are so good at security that none of the software works well. Some of the files are so big it can take a half an hour to just write a file. So you want to make one change of 1 degree to the ignition table. If it takes an hour or a half hour for it to see what that degree does, I'm not interested in calibrating it simply because I'm so used to live calibration where I say to myself, oh look, the dyno made this much power, here 1 more degree, oh it made this much power, 1 more degree, oh look, it's still climbing. If I can do changes in a few seconds, for me that workflow works very well. And while it's not, I see these Audis and Volkswagens making incredible power, I don't have the patience as a businessman to sit there for a day to tune one, and I wish I did.
But so it's very complicated, it's very intricate, there's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, let's talk about kind of the moving parts, because you've got basically airflow, you've got, well, there's three things: spark, airflow, and
And
fuel,
fuel,
right?
yeah.
So, and each of those, there's different variations that you can change,
Sure.
right? So you can change the kind of fuel, you can change the amount of airflow, there's just so much that you can do to it. What do you normally, out of those three, what do you normally work on?
I work on all three, and
Okay.
I try to balance them. And then sometimes I try to change up the balance. If I have a car that I'm running a lot of boost, really rich and low timing, and it doesn't like to make power, I might say, hey, let's wipe this slate clean. Let's run a lot of timing and low boost and still run rich fuel. But you can push these parameters sort of from the safe area to the less safe area. And I found that several, it seems almost like a family of engines likes a different thing. So like say an LS engine, those things, they don't always like timing, they sure like boost. So you might find that balance for yourself. And I see different tuners choose different balances, so I think that may be interesting to see which one truly works best at a racetrack. So, yeah.
So, another question I guess I would have is, actually, are there any questions? I'm sure we're getting kind of toward the end of the show, so we always like to answer questions.
Yeah, we usually like to keep the show about half an
An hour,
hour.
yeah,
We're about
yeah.
6 minutes away from
Yeah,
that.
so-
And there's a question, well, I think a general question is cost. I mean, how do you put your finger on this? I mean, can you
It's
discuss
hard.
that?
I'll say when I started, I was charging 300. At this point, I charge 650, but I include a pre-dyno inspection. I used to try to convince customers to let me look the car over and charge them, like, hey, can I put a fuel pressure gauge on there and monitor fuel pressure the whole tune? Can I put a smoke machine on your car and find leaks for you before? Of course, I would always get, no, I did the work, I did it perfectly. And then I would tune for a while, realize there were problems, and do the work for free anyway, because that's the kind of guy I am, and then retune the car. So we'd waste so much time, I couldn't charge for it. So one day I just woke up and said, hey, I'm gonna charge for the inspection, and if people don't wanna pay it, they can go somewhere where they don't inspect their car, get a tune, and then come back to me when they realize there were physical problems with the car.
So you charge $650 and that includes a,
I do, yeah,
and if
but
somebody wants to like have just a run pull on the dyno, how much you charge for that?
just $100 for just
$100.
some pulls, yeah.
Okay.
But let me clarify something. I charge $350 for a stock car for a stage 1 tune, and it's really just a loss leader, almost the way that Toys R Us puts diapers all the way at the back wall. So you have to come into the store and then you see a turbo and you're like, hey. And I usually show people what ethanol can do at that point as well. $450 for a stage 2 car that matches the off-the-shelf maps. And the beautiful thing is that, at least with Cobb and Subarus, a lot of the off-the-shelf maps, or all the newer ones, are so good that I generally can't beat them. So you really don't have to pay me for a tune if you don't want to. If you're just getting your feet wet, you can buy the programmer, put it in the car, and your car will run great. And I can even show you that it runs great on the dyno. I include that for free if you buy it from me. So yeah.
Different amounts of money, yes, Andre?
Yeah, two questions. Have you done any work on the Honda S2000 before?
Yeah, what a car, what an engine. Yeah, yes, please. Love them.
Is
Usually
it-
turbocharged ones. These days we're using the Haltech plug-and-play ECU as a replacement, but I've done Hondata on them, and then AEM makes a nice computer for it, and now the AEM makes an Infinity, which is a very nice standalone computer, so that's a great car to tune.
What do you think about turbo diesel engines? Do you have any experience there, and are they tunable?
They're very tunable, but I have no experience. I'll say it's an interesting thing. Turbo diesels and diesels in general, they run off of controlled detonation. They don't have a spark plug. You're really just compressing the gas till it explodes. The truth is, you can generally just add more fuel, is my understanding, until it stops making power.
All right, let's talk about ethanol. If you're using ethanol, is there a special tune for ethanol?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
very special. A car
Yeah.
won't run without being properly calibrated for ethanol. It's very hard on fuel systems. It requires a lot of fuel. We talk about stoichiometry. Stoichiometry is the chemical relationship between air and any fuel. So for diesel, it's...
I learned a new word, stoichiometry.
Yeah,
Andre,
actually-
did you know what that meant?
No, I need to go to university.
Yeah, stoichiometry.
Well,
Cool.
let me throw something else in
Yeah.
there. You have to say it's stoichiometry.
Stoichiometry, okay.
Stoichiometry, that's it. Okay.
Stoichiometry.
Yeah.
We learned a new word, that's pretty cool. So it's the way that fuel interacts with it.
Yeah, the fuel in the air.
Yeah.
And for gasoline, we want 14 parts air to 1 part fuel by mass, not by volume. And same with diesel, about 14 to 1. With ethanol, it's 9 to 1. You have so much more fuel with ethanol that you have to have a big fuel system to run the fuel. But yeah, it's very hard to run ethanol without tuning and proper fuel upgrades.
And so once you tune it for an ethanol, then you can't put it back with the regular gas, right?
No, we can, yeah.
Okay.
You
No,
generally
but
just,
I'm saying, but you can't go to the pump, right? If it's tuned for ethanol, just filling it up with regular gas is gonna cause all kinds of havoc.
no, not at all.
No?
We
Okay.
are now doing
There you go.
flex fuel. Yeah,
Yeah.
so now we have an ethanol sensor, and that allows us to program the car generally for gasoline and ethanol at the same time. And the sensor tells it where it is on the spectrum of E0 to E100, 100% ethanol and 0% ethanol being all gasoline. So the cars we're programming, it's no problem. You can put whatever you want in.
Couple more questions before we wrap it up on.
Well, we have about a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe we should fire the car up as we're wrapping up,
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so Harvey, I was just driving the Honda Clarity, which is a hydrogen cell fusion car. I'm wondering how long before people start tuning those.
Oh, I can't wait.
Fuel cell car.
I think here's the thing. People that like are obsessed with power and speed.
Yeah.
We love combustion. Like,
Right.
what could be better than hydrogen?
Yeah, because you're just getting water out the tailpipe. All right, let's start up the Porsche in the last minute so you guys can hear it.
All right.
All right, let me put your computer back so it doesn't
Yeah, it vibrates.
take off the car and damage your beautiful paint job, Harvey.
I know it's original 2002 paint.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
All right, I'll start.
You're gonna try to,
Okay, there we go. Oh yeah.
Let me know if you need a rev or anything. It's still warm.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll rev it for you.
All right,
Yeah.
have it. All right, good job. Turn it off.
I hope you guys approve of that.
We approve. I hope these guys agree. Well, guys, thank you for watching this special episode with my man Harvey. As always, this is Roman, and
Harvey Epstein at the Boost Creep.
yeah, check out his website, boostcreepltd.com.
Yes.
And don't forget, go to TFLcar.com where we have more great videos. And let's do you've done a bunch of dyno runs for us. Which one should we link to this video?
Oh, I think the big green truck is
The big
my
green
favorite.
truck? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do the dyno run with the big green just by clicking. We'll put it up over here somewhere. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Ciao.